Hi guys and welcome back to Irony Completed. First things first, I apologise for my hair. My fringe is growing out and I know it looks terrible and I really hate it, but you're gonna have to deal with it. Also, I apologise because you can't see the fact that I have this really cute ponytail going on. I know, but you don't know because it's above the camera and that's sad. But today I wanted to talk to you guys about my top 10 favourite movies of all time at the moment. And I always add at the moment when I do my top favourite of all time kind of series because my favourites are always changing. I did try to only include movies that I know I've loved for a long time now, so nothing that I've seen in the past few months, because for instance things like Deadpool and The Revenant would definitely be on this list if I was including those, but I think that those are movies that I might change my mind about in the future or that might not stand the test of time in the way that my other favourites have. So these are favourite films that I have been obsessed with for a solid period of time now. Some of them I have physical copies of the DVD to show you, but not all of them, and that is because some of the DVDs that I own of my favourite films are still at home because I couldn't bring everything to university with me, and also because sometimes I don't always own physical copies of things because it can be really hard to get a hold of physical copies of things, and I generally don't buy brand new DVDs because I think that it's a dying format, so I generally only buy DVDs from charity shops. You'll probably notice a lot of my DVDs have charity shop stickers on the front because I just buy them when they're like £1 or £2. These are my favourite films of all time at the moment, and I'm not going to go in any particular order apart from the first one. This is my #1 favourite film of all time, which I think I've talked about in my 50 Facts About Me video. My #1 all-time favourite film is Leon the Professional, and sadly I don't have a physical copy of this, which is annoying. Leon the Professional is about a young girl called Matilda, played by Natalie Portman, who her whole family gets killed by a corrupted cop played by Gary Oldman, and she gets taken into the home of Leon, who is a professional hitman. And eventually Leon takes her under his wing and teaches her how to do hits and how to, you know, kill for money and things like that, and trains her in the ways of the hitman. And she seeks revenge on Gary Oldman and the police that killed her family, specifically her younger brother. And it's a little bit Lolita-y. She kind of falls in love with him. It's not reciprocated. It's a twisted fatherly relationship. It's very kind of like Electra complexy. I just think that it's a great film. It's probably something that I have watched over 20 times. I'm obsessed with it. I've even done a Get Ready With Me Matilda edition on my channel a long time ago, which I will link in the description if any of you are interested. I'm thinking of remaking that at some point because it's not very good. It's just fantastic. It's something that for me is integrally a part of pop culture in this kind of cult way, and also something that every time I watch it I'm so absorbed into this universe. And the acting is also absolutely fantastic. Gary Oldman plays crazy very, very well, as I'm sure you know, and this movie is no exception. He's great in this movie. Like I said, after this, none of this is in any particular order, but another one of my favourite films for different reasons is Girl Interrupted. Now this stars Winona Ryder as a girl who tries to commit suicide and ends up getting admitted to a mental health psych ward, and it's set during the 1960s, but it was made during the 1990s, so it has a very 1990s feel about it. It also stars Angelina Jolie as Lisa, who is a sociopathic patient at the same psych ward who befriends Winona Ryder's character, and it's just fantastic. This is one of those things that I feel like I relate to on a very personal level as someone who has suffered from mental health problems. It's not necessarily optimistic about mental health problems, but it's very realistic in my opinion, and that's because it was based on the memoirs of Susanna Kaysen, I think her name is, who Winona Ryder plays in this film. As someone who has suffered from mental health problems, this is something that whenever I'm feeling like I might relapse, or whenever I'm feeling really like I'm struggling, or just even like I'm sad, I watch this. You know how sometimes when you're sad you want to watch something light-hearted, like a Disney film that will make you feel better and that will just distract you, and sometimes when you're sad you need to watch something sad? This is the film that I watch when I'm feeling low and I need to watch something sad, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I adore this film, and I think that if you're a 1990s movie fan and you haven't seen this, you should definitely watch it. Great casting, great performances, great premise, just great all-rounder in my opinion. Oh, great soundtrack as well. My favourite musical is the Rocky Horror Picture Show, And I think that the Rocky Horror Picture Show is just one of those films that will stand the test of time forever because it's so cult in its status. This stars Tim Curry and Richard O'Brien, Susan Sarandon, a bunch of really famous people from the 60s and 70s, and it was also directed by Richard O'Brien and based off of a stage musical by Richard O'Brien. If you don't know, Richard O'Brien is kind of someone who's very interesting with his conceptions of gender. I'm pretty sure that he is non-binary or gender bending in some way. It's very, very interesting. He is a very interesting character, and this is a musical that plays with notions of gender in a very interesting way. By today's standards, it's not entirely PC, but I think that it's important to remember that this film was made in a time when gender exploration was reasonably new to the public sensibility. I love this film. I know lots and lots of people who love this film. I think it's like a really iconic like queer movie. And Tim Curry is fantastic as Dr. Frankenfurter in it. It plays with B-movie tropes and horror movie tropes and musical tropes, and it's just a very playful all-round musical. And the musicals that are kind of playing with the genre are my favourites, which is why my other favourite musical is Moulin Rouge, which I don't have a copy of at university. I think I have a copy at home. My other favourite musical is Moulin Rouge by Baz Luhrmann. I think that it's another one of those films that's very pastiche. It plays with the genre quite a lot. It has that whole musical within a musical trope, which I really like. It's got Ewan McGregor as the main character, which 90s Ewan McGregor, girl. And also it takes pop songs and then kind of like medleys them and puts them into medleys or remixes them. For instance, they have a version of Roxanne by The Police, which becomes a tango, which is my favourite song in the entire musical, in case you were wondering. And I just think that it's again another great all-round musical. It's got everything that I would want in a musical, and I don't like musicals that much. So there you go. I think I have mentioned before that Alfred Hitchcock is one of my favourite directors, tied with another person who I will mention in a second. And my favourite Alfred Hitchcock movie, and that's very difficult for me to decide, is Rear Window, starring James Stewart and Grace Kelly. This is about a journalist played by James Stewart who has a broken leg. So he's wheelchair bound and he is bound to his apartment, and he lives in this apartment where there's a big courtyard that he can see from his window, and he's watching all the people through the window, and he witnesses a murder, but he has to try and prove it. So it's really, really interesting. Obviously Hitchcock is known for psychological thrillers, and this is his most successful attempt at that, in my opinion, because it places you in such a powerless position by placing you in the position of James Stewart's character. It also stars Grace Kelly, who is phenomenal and beautiful and elegant in it. So I think that this is one where if you're a casual fan of films and a casual fan of Hitchcock, or if you are a die-hard cinephile, or if you just like the decade, this will cover all those bases. And it is my favourite Hitchcock film, which is really hard because I've seen all of them and I like all of them. It's really hard to pick. My other favourite director, who I said I would mention, is Aki Kaurismäki. Now, he is a Finnish director, and this is a foreign language movie. His best movie, in my opinion, is Ariel. It's my favourite. It's also the first one I watched, and then I have something to do with it because I feel like this movie just like blew my mind when I watched it for the first time, and impacted me in a strange way. My dad's girlfriend is Finnish, if you didn't know, which is why I was introduced to Aki Kaurismäki. Interestingly, Aki Kaurismäki and his brother, who is also a filmmaker, are responsible for like 80% of the output of the Finnish film industry since the 1980s or something crazy large like that. So he really is a very prolific filmmaker, and he has a lot of really great trilogies. This is Ariel, which is from the Proletariat trilogy or the Underdog trilogy. Basically, it's about a character who gets fired from his job, moves to Helsinki to try and find work, struggles, moves around between homeless shelters, and then eventually falls in love with this woman who has a child who is also struggling for work. Basically, he makes really interesting films about the working class Finnish population, and they all have this really great dark sense of humour and comedy to them. They're so deadpan. There is a character in this who I can't remember the name of, but he's played by Matti Pelonpää, who is one of my favourite actors and also one of my dad's favourite actors. But Matti Pelonpää is this guy that the main character meets in jail, and he is the most deadpan, hilarious, darkly comic character in the entire film, probably in any film ever. And if you really like that kind of sarcastic, dry sense of humour, then you'd really like this. Another thing to note is that a lot of people don't understand that these films are acted in a very deadpan, emotionless style, and this is no exception. The acting is very, very deadpan, but it is deliberate, and I think that it's very effective in the context of this film. I think that if you've never watched an Aki Kaurismäki film before, this is a really great opener. My other favourites by Aki Kaurismäki are Le Havre and The Match Factory Girl, in case you were interested, but everything I've seen by him I have really enjoyed. What number am I on now? Oh, number 7. I should have been doing numbers so that you know I am actually doing 10, but I promise you I am actually doing 10. That was number 6. Ariel was number 6. And number 7 is Once Upon a Time in Mexico, directed by Robert Rodriguez, another great director. He did the Spy Kids films, which I could do a whole separate video on my favourite kids films if you guys like, because kids films are something that I think is very underappreciated by adults. Anyway. Once Upon a Time in Mexico is part of his Mexico trilogy, and it follows the hero or anti-hero El Mariachi, played by Antonio Banderas, of course, and he is being hunted down by the mercenary who killed his wife, and at the same time he is being exploited by an FBI agent played by Johnny Depp, who is kind of, do you mind, computer? Johnny Depp plays an FBI agent who is kind of exploiting and playing all the other characters off against each other and kind of fucking everyone over, and it's really, really interesting. It's really visually stunning. If you like Tarantino, then you'll like Robert Rodriguez, and generally I think this is a really awesome film. It's got action, it's got comic relief, it's a really great mix of different things, and it's one of my favourite films. Obviously, that's why it's on this list. And now I have no more DVDs to show you, but a more recent film that I really like, number 9 on my list? Number 8 on my list is a more recent film, and that is Mad Max Fury Road. But I kind of want to cheat here a little bit and just say that the entire Mad Max series is my favourite, because I like all of them. My favourites are number 2, number 3 and the most recent one, but particularly number 3 and the most recent one. I love the Mad Max franchise, but let's just talk about Fury Road because it's the most recent and also I could only pick one. Mad Max Fury Road stars Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron. It's got a really great supporting cast as well. Set in a post-apocalyptic Australia where gasoline kind of controls the world, and there's been like a nuclear disaster, and this villain called Immortan Joe is keeping these women hostage to try and breed healthy babies because all people are being born with like birth defects because of radiation and stuff. They try and escape, aided by Charlize Theron's character Furiosa, and Mad Max, played by Tom Hardy, helps them. And it's just a really, really great film. It's got really great feminist undertones, and Mad Max is just a really great franchise, and I think that they really captured the essence of the original trilogy. So I think that if you were kind of unwilling to see it because you really like the originals, you should see it, and if you were unwilling to see it because you were like, oh, it's just a typical boyish action movie, I'm not gonna like this, you will. It has a lot of really great female characters in it, and it's just a all-over fantastic film. Lastly, I want to talk about 2 anime films. My favourite animated films are all by Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki. I love all of that. I have a large collection of Studio Ghibli films at home. I just couldn't bring them all, and I couldn't decide which ones I wanted to bring. But my 2 favourite Studio Ghibli films, so number 9 and number 10 on my list, are Howl's Moving Castle and Nausicaa. Howl's Moving Castle is based on a Diana Wynne Jones book, and it is fantastic. It's really magical. It's about wizards and witches. A young woman called Sophie gets a curse placed on her, and then she turns into an old woman, and she finds herself in Howl's Moving Castle, and it's a romance, and she has to try and get back to normal. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, you should. It's amazing, and it's also a very easy way to step into Studio Ghibli and anime films if you haven't really seen or experienced any before. And my other favourite is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Winds, because it has the most badass female character of all time, Nausicaa, and basically it's set in a dystopian future in which this toxic wasteland of a jungle is overtaking the earth, and they have these gigantic toxic insects that can kill you. And Nausicaa is a princess of this Valley of the Winds kingdom, and one day these people come from a city and they invade and ruin everything, and she has to try and fix it all. And it's a really great film with a really strong environmental message, but also the thing I really like about Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki films is that they often have really strong female protagonists with really feminist undertones, and I really enjoy that. Nausicaa, I think, is my ultimate favourite by Studio Ghibli, although I couldn't not mention Howl's Moving Castle in this list. So that is my top 10 favourite movies of all time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up, and also let me know down in the comments what your favourite movies are, because I'd love to know, especially if I haven't seen them before, so I can check them out. I'm such a cinephile and I love watching new movies all the time, so I'll definitely update this list sometime soon. And also, if you want me to do at the end of 2016, I know we're only in March, but hear me out. If you want me to do at the end of 2016 or even monthly a movie favourites, then please let me know, because I definitely will. If you want to follow me on Twitter, Tumblr or Instagram, they'll all be linked down in the description, along with everything that I'm wearing and what's on my face right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!